You are almost never going to hear a company come out and say that they got something wrong. You're definitely not going to hear that when it's a big something. But we're getting about as close as you can when it comes to Disney and a number of their strategies which have fallen apart. None of which seems to have come about during the Chapek era, but rather prior to that in the Iger era, now being adjusted as he comes back and perhaps scapegoating Chapek all the way. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure you click the like button, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. Also, we cover your comments, so drop one down below. All right, folks, let's explain some entertainment and get you ahead of the culture curve. This, an article from Variety by Todd Spangler. Bob Iger is bullish on Disney Plus, but we were off on pricing strategy and needed to rationalize costs. All right, let's dive straight into this. And you're going to notice throughout the conversation we're going to have today as we read along that Iger is going to be very political in the way that he speaks. He is going to spin quite a bit, and we are going to identify every time it happens and then read between the lines what's really being said. That's why we come to this channel. That's why we're here to do this. Bob Iger, just over 3 months back as CEO of Disney, discussed major organizational changes he's made at the company. Come on, 3 months. And his optimism about making streaming, particularly Disney Plus, a profitable piece of the empire. Before we go on, let's express the gravity of the situation. Disney Plus has been losing about $1 billion or more every quarter. That is essentially as if each one of their cruise liners sank to the bottom of the ocean each quarter. That's the kind of money loss that Disney Plus is. So saying that we're going to get to profitability, great idea, but let's also talk about how bad the current spot is and why they're rushing to get this fixed. I'm generally bullish on streaming as a great consumer proposition, as a really robust platform to deliver high-quality content, Iger said, speaking Thursday at the 2023 Morgan Stanley Technology, Media, and Telecom Conference in San Francisco. What a title. I think that sentence is worth breaking down. I think this is interesting. So Disney's been in what we call an arms race with Netflix, and there was a while there that Disney could beat Netflix. Now look at how they're talking. I'm generally bullish on streaming as a great consumer proposition. No, that's not what you guys were saying just 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it was all about Disney Plus. Everything's flowing to Disney Plus. Disney Plus is the new thing. You're going to be the king of streaming. What's going on? He later said, eventually, I think everything will migrate to streaming, including, as he said before, ESPN as a direct-to-consumer offering. But Iger said we have to better rationalize our costs, and obviously we have to attract more subs. In addition, he said Disney Plus needs a pricing strategy that makes sense. So, to put that in layman's terms, they're spending too much, they're making too little. In our zeal to grow global subs, I think we were off in terms of our pricing strategy, and we're now starting to learn more about it and to adjust accordingly. Okay, let me say no. That's fine, but you have a content issue. You don't have a pricing issue in terms of, you can go up, but until your content is fixed, you cannot. Because if we look at the Nielsen ratings, we're seeing a decline in Disney Plus participation. Now, sure, there are a lot of people still holding on to those subscription plans. They haven't gotten the cancellations completed yet. But in terms of raising that price when you're putting out stuff that nobody's connecting with, if you go look at Nielsen, you're going to find that Netflix now dominates in a way that it did not 1 year ago. The other players in this battlefield are actually rising up too. HBO Max, Peacock, all Paramount Plus, they're all rising up in attention and shows that are pulling in the Nielsen ratings. Every once in a while, Disney will get a flash in the pan like Black Wakanda Forever. But Disney's essentially living off of Bluey right now. Bluey and Encanto. That's how bad it is. So going up in price at this point, good luck with that. Iger also said Disney overall had a disconnect between what it was spending on content and how it was monetizing that, and that the company needs to become more judicious about content investments as production costs have skyrocketed. He almost acts as if he had left the company for a long time and is coming back to fix it, when in reality, he never left the company. He stepped down from his position for about 10 months while Chapek ran the company. However, Iger was still on as a consultant and still had his office inside the biggest suite at Disney. Iger's remarks about Disney Plus's pricing indicates the company believes it has room to raise fees even after the streamer's ad-free tier increased from $7.99 to $10.99 per month in the U.S. in December, which, by the way, I don't think their ad tier is successful yet. We're not hearing any good news about it, so I don't know that it's being the boon to revenues that they had hoped. On Disney's February 8th earnings call, Iger noted that even with the price increase in the core package, we only suffered a de minimis loss of subs. That tells us something. Regarding the fate of Hulu, Iger reiterated that the company is continuing to examine whether Disney will seek to buy out Comcast's 33% stake in Hulu or whether it will look to exit the streamer. I completely ignore all of this, folks, and the reason is this isn't for you and it's not for me. That is politicking about Hulu. It's politicking with other companies trying to create leverage. They simply don't want you to know what they're actually going to do. So there's no point in us reading that. I mean, you can go read the article, but you're not going to get any kind of truth out of it because that's not the kind of statement that Iger's putting out there. You don't pick up your poker hand and immediately tell everybody what you've got. If you have any sense in your head, then they're not going to do that as to what they're going to do with Hulu either. Iger, previously Disney CEO from 2005 to 20, returned, never left, as the Mouse House's interim chief executive after the ouster of Bob Chapek last November, by the way, also at his hands. At the Morgan Stanley conference, Iger said, succession is pretty much at the top of the list between me and the board to identify Disney's next CEO. Although let it be said, too, that as uncovered by the Valiant Renegade channel, Iger will still have in place a long-term consultation agreement which keeps him at Disney for the foreseeable future. So whoever comes in there still has to contend with Iger. Iger is the big cheese over with Mickey. My goal is essentially to leave here in 2 years with a trajectory that is very optimistic and positive, Iger said, as opposed to the way he left last time. In one of Iger's biggest moves since coming back, last month, Disney said it would eliminate 7,000 jobs in a mass layoff coming as part of an effort to slash $5.5 billion in costs. Disney is aiming for an annualized reduction of $3 billion in non-sports content costs. On Thursday, Iger said that goal is achievable, although not right away because Disney has long-term commitments and that support from the content side of our business is real and we will deliver it. Also last month, Iger reorganized the company into three core business segments. Disney Entertainment, that's by Dana Walden and Alan Bergman. Dana Walden probably the lead right now for the opportunity to take over the CEO spot. ESPN, led by Jimmy Pitaro. And note that everything ESPN-wise is all related to the fact that people love to watch sports. If you're thinking about ESPN in terms of their shows that they do with their personalities, that's abysmal. Nobody's watching it. It's crap. But the actual sports, that makes a ton of money, and it makes enough money that it's able to put it on a even third-tier level with the other segments, the other three segments. Disney Parks Experience and Products, left by Josh D'Amaro. They talk about getting rid of DMED. That's I don't know that that's had a huge impact on anything other than being able to say Chapek bad, Kareem Daniels bad. But other than that, I don't think it had much of an impact on the company. All right, let's go down here. Iger previously has underscored that the media conglomerate is focused on streaming profitability, signaling a pullback from Chapek's heavy investment in content and his push to amass subscribers. Okay, now this is a big deal because this wasn't just Chapek's push. This was also Iger's push. Now, when under Chapek, they were able to raise the numbers that they thought they would achieve over time. Iger's pulled that back now. They don't think that they're going to reach those milestones that Chapek had set. But this idea now that they're going to pull back from heavy investment in streaming, wow! I mean, that is a Herculean change at Disney. It's a huge, massive switch in strategy. I don't think that it's being fully relayed in this article just what a big deal this is, and also what a sign of defeat it is. Honestly, let's talk about it. In the last 3 months of 2022, Disney Plus lost 2.4 million subscribers. Its first decline since launching in 2019, driven by a 3.8 million sequential decline at Disney Plus Hotstar, the version of the service offered in India and parts of Southeast Asia as of the end of 2022. Disney Plus had 161.8 million subscribers. In other words, half of Netflix. And while Netflix is growing, Disney Plus cannot offset those losses in Asia because they're not growing in North America either. And that's not said in this article. It needs to be. It needs to be said loudly, because people need to understand this. Netflix added millions in the last quarter. Disney did not. The reason that Disney lost is because Disney's not growing in North America. People have stopped buying it. And this idea that Disney is fully saturated in the market, well, that's a bunch of bunk, because Netflix is double Disney's size, and Netflix continues to grow at an enormous rate. The saturation is not there. That's an excuse. And Disney knows that. Iger knows that. All of these people know that. It's time for us to start knowing it as well as a marketplace. Under Iger's leadership, Disney is reevaluating windowing and exclusivity strategies, and is considering upping its content licensing deals with other distributors. Okay, what's that saying? Well, it's talking about slowing down the content that comes to Disney Plus, which, by the way, disincentivizes people from holding on to the streaming service, and it disincentivizes people from buying the service. When you slow down the content, what you're doing is you're hoping that people will hold on to Disney Plus simply to have the ability to show their children the best vault of Disney content from the last decades, but you're not creating new content at the same rate. The other thing that is important to note here is that licensing to other streaming platforms and other companies. That means that Disney Plus content may show up on Netflix, may show up on Paramount, it may show up any number of places. And again, that disincentivizes people from picking up Disney Plus if they can find some of that Disney content elsewhere. I think it's already clear to us that the exclusivity that we thought would be so valuable in growing subs, while it has some value, wasn't as valuable as we thought, Iger said Thursday. Okay, just pause right there. This is the politicking again. Yes, exclusivity, especially when it comes to Disney, should be as valuable as you thought. It should 100% be as valuable as you thought. The reason it's not is because you've been producing sociocultural propaganda crap that families don't want to deal with. And therefore, having that exclusive to your streaming service just isn't working. With regard to Marvel, which has 7,000 characters, what a strange thing to say. Are we going to start listing now in these publications the number of characters that are in each franchise that exist? My gosh, what a strange thing. What Disney has to consider is not volume of output, but how often we go back to the well with certain characters, Iger said. Sequels typically work well for us. Do you need a third or fourth, for instance, or is it time to turn to other characters? Marvel will turn back to the Avengers franchise, but with a whole different set of Avengers. And by the way, this just shows he's completely disconnected from what works. Nobody should be taking from this article that Disney is about to right the ship. Disney is suffering. Disney will cut back the content. Disney will cut back the cadence. Disney will cut the budgets. But Disney is not willing to let go of this failed strategy that they've been doing. This MCU, this phase 4, phase 5, phase 6 dive that they've been doing. They're not backing off of that. He has not yet identified the issue. And in fact, watch this next paragraph, because not only has Marvel, the golden goose, essentially collapsed now, Star Wars already had. And let's see how well he understands that. On the Star Wars front, Iger noted that the company made 2 standalone films, Rogue One, which did well, and Solo, which was a little disappointing to us. If by you mean franchise crippling bad, then yes, it was a little disappointing. Solo's underwhelming performance gave us pause just to think maybe the cadence was a little too aggressive, and so we decided to pull it back a bit. By the way, folks, have you enjoyed the cadence of Star Wars theatrical releases? By that, what we mean is none. That's the cadence. None. Zero, nada, no Star Wars. So when they're talking about pulling back the cadence on Disney Plus, what do you think that means when he's talking about the exact same thing when it comes to Star Wars? Zip, nada, none. They're going to cut back as much as they possibly can because they can't keep losing $1 billion a quarter. And they're not going to say to themselves, perhaps the content we're making is the problem. Perhaps the messaging is the problem. Perhaps people don't want the woke in their kids' stuff. But they're not going to say that yet. They have not yet reached bottom to be able to do it. He says, we still are developing Star Wars films. We're going to make sure when we make one that it's the right one. So be very careful here. It reminds me of somebody who hasn't dated in 10 years. And you're like, well, you ever going to get a boyfriend or girlfriend? And they said, no, I'm waiting for the right one. I don't want to. You're like, just go on a single date. Like, come on, make a Star Wars movie. Do something. I hear the screams of fans right now who are like, no, not under Kathleen Kennedy. No. So anyway, folks, that's the article we've got for you today. When it comes to Disney, things are not looking good. They are abandoning the prior strategy with Disney Plus, and that's what's being relayed. They're never going to say that out loud. They're never going to say it directly. This is as close as you're going to get But indeed, the Disney Plus strategy of trying to overcome Netflix, of being the premier streamer, that seems out the door. They're done with that. They're going to cut the content. They're going to cut the cadence. They're going to license out other stuff. This is defeat for Disney, and they have not yet reached the point of admitting what's causing it. And that's why they're going to continue to slide on other fronts as well, including the box office, including shows, etc. All right, if you enjoy content like this, click the like button, share, subscribe, click that notification bell, and don't forget that the Pro Show starts March 23rd, Thursdays of every week, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you didn't yet watch the Melanie Mack interview this morning, go check that out. It's a fantastic interview. I think you'll love it. And we will have Script Doctor on tomorrow talking about the DC universe. Make sure you're here for that. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.